So just a short while ago, we did a video about the rise of femcels, and at the time, many of the comments were saying, obviously, femcels don't exist, because, of course, all women can get a hookup whenever they want. They have access to sex no matter what they look like or who they are, and that's true. But the femcels in question, we must draw a distinction. These are women who say they are incapable of either getting or keeping a boyfriend. They are terminally single women, mostly Gen Z women, who are commiserating on TikTok over this, their perpetual singlehood. And these women, I'm seeing examples of very attractive ones. POV, do you have the examples here? POV, you've gone your entire life without a boyfriend. I wish I was joking. Another one said, maybe I've never had a boyfriend because I'm a wife, not a girlfriend. She's not saying that she's married. She's saying that she doesn't want to date. She only wants to get married. What I tell myself anyways. Another one said, you've never had a boyfriend or been on a date. Me, when I don't want to go on a first date, but then I remember I'll be 30 this month and I've never had a boyfriend.
So who are we blaming for this?
First of all, I don't believe any of them.
Why do we have to blame someone?
I don't believe any of them at all.
I guess like.
So wait, you think that they have had boyfriends, or do you think that?
Yeah, they just didn't call it that. They didn't call them a boyfriend.
It was a situationship.
Yeah, they've
well,
had
do
like
you think
400
that they were?
I've met some tough, grizzled femcels. They look nothing like that.
One of the responses said these aren't femcels, they are situationship girls.
Yep.
They've never had a boyfriend because they've been in situationships for their whole life. However, I must say, my instinct is that most situationships are situationships because the man doesn't want to define the relationship, not because the woman doesn't want to. So that would mean that they've never had boyfriends.
Well, that's just bad selection.
I mean, then they're just.
So then they're not lying. That is the truth.
If they're the ones that can have the keepers of the ability to have sex, that means they can also have a boyfriend. They just have to find a guy who's not an idiot.
Because the femcel's predicate on the incel, and if you're an incel, then it's like involuntary. But like in their situation, it's not involuntary. They're just maybe bad at selecting men, presumably.
Well, I think they would say they are voluntarily celibate but involuntarily single because of a dearth of dateable or marriageable men. Whether or not we want to lend credence to that claim is a different question, but that's what they're actually claiming. They're not saying like that they couldn't possibly find a guy who would be willing to date them, or of course they would find plenty of guys willing to have a one-night stand, but they're not able to either find a guy who wants to be in a committed relationship or keep a guy once they're in a relationship.
It's like both genders are complaining about this issue, and they can't find each other. So then something's telling me someone's lying.
I think that there's just character flaws abound, and that the fact that you're putting it on social media is also a red flag.
Well, I think it's also once you get out of college, you don't ever meet the opposite sex your own age. It just never happens. Like, because people don't go to churches or anything, or bowling leagues, or there's not really any institution set up where you would meet someone of the opposite sex. It just doesn't really exist.
Well, and at work,
the military, maybe the gooning chambers, I don't know.
At work, you're not allowed to date because of HR tyranny, so that's another avenue that's been completely crossed out.
Because like in my friend circle, it's all men, and they're all keen on getting married, and they can't find women their own age that are also wanting to get married. And then but then you see these I never meet these women because of the same problem, but they're on you see it on social media, them expressing the same issue.
And who knows, like they might be the types who are on a date and they're like, so who did you vote for? Like they are probably disqualifying men on dubious grounds. But I think that instead of men, they're turning to AI increasingly for companionship. A lot of people talk about women getting replaced by AI girlfriends, but in a lot of cases, men are being replaced by AI boyfriends. There's a whole subreddit dedicated to women who are in relationships with robots, with ChatGPT. It's called My Boyfriend is AI. We actually talked about one of the moderators of this subreddit last week, who was interviewed for a news segment about this, and she said that she's actually married, and she turned to an AI companion when she took a job long distance from her husband. I have no idea if he's aware of that, but there are several examples posted here Thought it would be good for laughs, but this sub is legit making me cry. People are getting so lonely. There's an illustration of this girl with her AI boyfriend playing video games. Another one of her and her AI boyfriend at a water park. Another one saying yes to a proposal from her AI boyfriend.
I think she's crying because he's got better hair than her.
And then just another girl and her AI companion.
See, I suspected when all these stories started coming out, I actually suspected that men or women would turn to the AI more, because for men texting is like a chore, but women
you'd think
love texting. So I figured if it's a text-based interface, that women would actually get one-shotted quicker. I just think the press is probably more focused on the men, and also because I think men would be more open to like letting people know that that's occurring. I think with women it's probably a bit more embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that all of these people feel immense shame and
would
never reveal this to the public.
Yeah, like when I have to text anyone, it's like, it's the worst. You got to sit there and like act like you're into the conversation. But with women, it's, I mean, I hate to generalize, but generally it's like, yeah, women actually enjoy, talking and texting people. So yeah, I thought AI was like fine-tuned for women.
So I mean, some of them are turning to AI boyfriends, if you even want to call them that. Some of them are turning to romance novels, which we talked about recently, which is just porn. And a lot of them are choosing to be single because they believe there are no eligible men. There was this piece in the New York Times recently titled, "Men, where have you gone? Please come back. So many men have retreated from intimacy, hiding behind firewalls, filters, and curated personas, dabbling and scrolling. We miss you." They just feel like the men have completely left the chat.
What do they mean by curated personas? Because, okay,
they're probably talking about the way people present themselves in online dating.
Yes, and I look at something like this that gets 101,000 likes. I mean, these are curated personas online as well. This is pick-me energy.
Yeah,
in a weird way.
I think that's just her definition of a boyfriend is different than like a conventional definition. But she's 100% had options. Like, the premise is they have no options, which is just categorically false because they're, normal-looking people.
The Wall Street Journal also put out a piece titled, "American Women Are Giving Up on Marriage. Major demographic shifts have put men and women on divergent paths." Probably they're talking about academia and professional fields. That's left more women resigned to being single. The numbers aren't netting out. They interviewed Katie Kirsch, who is 30, in New York City. She ramped down her search for a husband after many of the men she dated either seemed turned off by her ambition or weren't career-oriented enough for her, saying dating is the only thing you can put 10,000 hours into and end up right back where you started.
Because you put 10,000 hours into it and didn't learn where you needed to compromise.
Right. Or you didn't learn anything from the experience. You didn't try to improve yourself. The challenges of finding a romantic partner have been made more complicated by a growing divide in education and career prospects between men and women. And what they said quietly in that headline is women are outperforming men in academia and professionally. They're starting to out-earn men, and they're not finding men who are matched with them in income and education level.
Because the men that are at their income and education level don't want women that live their life.
Yeah.
And that's their right too, to choose such a thing.
Also, women can like handle the singleness much better than men. Like women, they just work harder, focus on their career. Men, you get in like in a shootout at the Fabubu fan parade thing.
Well, I was actually
Wait, no, you only do that when you already got a girlfriend.
I think a lot of those guys are just giving up and they're down there to fight.
Tim brought up this clip of Charlie Kirk telling a teenage girl that if she wants to find a husband, college might be a good place to find him. And I think that's kind of absurd advice, and it's also advice that Charlie Kirk and his wife did not follow. But then I said women statistically they find it easier to be content to have a satisfying life without getting married. And like good or bad, you don't really have to make a value judgment on that. That's just the outcomes that we're seeing, and men tend to have much worse outcomes for their health and mental health if
Oh,
they
yeah.
remain single.
Yeah, they
so,
start getting into like dog fighting and stuff.
because of all the stereotypes of like, you know, your wife is constantly badgering you to go see the doctor about that issue or whatever, or wives who tend to kind of orchestrate their husband's social life. And if you don't have that stable figure as a life partner, then men tend to not make up the difference for themselves. Women seem to be more able to content themselves. There's plenty of, you know, TV shows and, you know, Friends and bars and restaurants and romance novels to keep you entertained. And there are plenty of cats that you can get to keep you
but I mean,
satisfied. I'm not saying that's the ultimate goal that anyone should have in life, but they do find it easier to make do without a husband.
I don't know if I would believe that those numbers are high without antidepressants.
That's probably. I mean, I do think I kind of agree with what Mary's saying, because like you see these guys online, and when women, you see articles like this, and they're like, they'll learn when they're 40, and I'm like, no, they're gonna be fine. If you ended up single at 40, you would like.
No, but I also
crash
think
out.
that the complaint or the critique I usually have is that they won't end up alone. They're like
They
they're gonna
won't,
be
yeah.
like they'll find someone.
And also, like, now you're seeing technology like with like freezing eggs and stuff. It's like, and you're seeing these celebrities. That's gonna eventually trickle down and be like financially viable for average people.
It's like a male cope for themselves to imagine that they won't end up happy because they don't like the implication.
Yeah,
That the women
Sure.
will that they're doing.
That
this
there
and
will
they're
be
fine.
justice
But
in
I
the
mean,
end.
That's what it is, yeah.
It's like an
Yeah.
idea of cosmic justice that's not real because that's not the way the real world works.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's it's kind of a path to madness to worry about large scale groups and stuff like this, because you're never going to get a satisfying outcome because that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
For a lot of these younger women who are complaining about not being able to find a boyfriend or keep a boyfriend, a lot of them, see, there's a lot of talk about women having inflated standards for men that are just unrealistic. And they say a lot of it has to do with looks, but I think more often women's unrealistic standards are emotional standards, where they basically expect a guy to be both a man and a woman whenever it is convenient for her.
Yeah.
Like, the most insane thing that women say about men in the dating pool these days is that they're not, they're not in touch with their emotions. They're emotionally closed off, or he's just like not emotionally available enough.
He's just immature.
That's one of the biggest complaints, is like,
Yeah.
he's not emotionally available enough. That doesn't mean that there's a problem with him. It literally just means that you're dating men who don't like you. Find one who likes you, and problem solved.
Yeah.
The men who are being emotionally unavailable to you don't have a personality flaw. They just don't like you. If they were dating someone they liked, they wouldn't act that way.
That's not necessarily true. Some men just do not feel like sharing those types of things. It's keeping your guard up because there's a feeling of putting too much out there with somebody, and that's a genuine.
Okay, there's such a thing as actually being emotionally unavailable. Like, that could be a personality flaw, but most of the time what they're complaining about is the way that a guy acts when he is genuinely not interested in you. So just find one who is.
Yeah, but the women that are making that complaint are talking about men that they're dating, that they're in a relationship with, that don't reach the level of emotional sharing that they would like. So by all other all other metrics, the guy likes them. He takes care of her, or at least at the very least, they spend all their time together. When they're happy, they're good. But when he's upset or something like that, he just doesn't want to share that stuff because maybe his whole life he dealt with that stuff on his own, and it's not his inclination to share that stuff. Also, there's a level of masculinity to that about sharing how you feel. That's not usually how men see these things, because women can see weakness in it, or at least that's how they perceive it.
Well,
That
I
doesn't mean he's not
understand that there's
interested in
a
her.
natural difference between the way men and women express their emotions, obviously.
Yeah.
But
Men are
highly
not,
underestimate the number of people, men and women, who will date someone they don't like. And in the cases where women are complaining about men not being emotionally available or being commitment phobic, whatever, and they're not even in relationships with these men, they're talking about men who don't like them.
I think they're like that may be true.
They're talking about men who
I
are
could be
kind
wrong.
of keeping them around as a placeholder or a hookup, who are not interested in a relationship, and they're wondering why he's the problem. No, it just means that you're with the wrong guy.
I still think that there's a large percentage of the male population that just does not emote that way, and they don't share feelings that way necessarily. And
I agree that there is a problem of women expecting men to behave the same way as women about their emotions. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying they wouldn't really perceive it as a problem if they were with a guy who genuinely enjoyed their company.
I think that is the disconnect, is like the majority of men are emotionally available and like the actual description of what that means,
right?
And then the small portion of men that aren't are the men that these women, that's their type, so they keep selecting them, so then they're only being exposed to this particular streak of men. I think that's more what's happening here.
With the situationship girls, they're kind of addicted to a cycle of being victims.
Exactly. So that's why they're not going to encounter these men that are this way, because they're not interested in them. Because I mean, you see the same thing with men. It's a lot less common, but men will be like, I want like a trad wife, and they're just describing a man. Like, I want a wife that is like super trad, but she plays video games. It was like Sam Hyde's like, you just described an autistic man. So it's like, that's like
where's the polarity, you know? Like, where's the mystery?
That would be awful to marry a woman that behaves like a man, or vice versa. Like,
yeah, you usually hope people like grow out of preferences like that
you have to live
after
with
high
this
school.
person. Yeah.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.